Piece of the planet. You know what it is? Oh, I didn't turn on the light. There's the light. And we are at Bishop Chronicles. Chilling as always, I'm always talking about martial arts and I'm always talking about philosophy, but you know what I need to talk about more? My philosophy around money because it sucks, right? And so when we talk about men and we're talking about getting better and we're talking about men struggling, what we're often talking about are financial struggles, right? And the ripple effects that come from them. So, what can I say, man? I'm lucky. I know really cool people, right? You might say, oh, this guy knew Tupac or he knows RZA and he hangs out with the Wu-Tang. But I also know David Frazee from Demystifying Silicon Valley, Demystifying Wealth. David, welcome to Bishop Chronicles. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back. It's been a while, but
Yeah, man, it's been a minute. I haven't seen you. You're looking cool. You're always doing cool things in the valley. Now, for people that don't know you, because I have many different ways that I will describe you in different ways that I know you, but recently you've been doing demystifying Silicon Valley and demystifying wealth. But you're also like a VC, you're also an intellectual property attorney, or you were. So like what is the lowdown on David Frazee? And then let's move into demystifying.
yeah, so it's a complicated question. I think the easy way is to frame my purpose or why do I exist? I have been obsessed with the question of how do you transform opportunity for those without. I grew up under the poverty level, as we've discussed in previous programs. My
Yeah,
family made $6,700 a year in rural Kansas, and that's not a good income even back when I grew up. It's still not.
right.
And opportunity is not well distributed, but talent is. And so my entire life has been obsessed with the question of how do you unleash that talent? So, from
Mm,
my perspective, I've personally been one of the top Silicon Valley attorneys doing global innovation, global venture capital, co founded the first IP strategy practice in Silicon Valley with a guy who's now at Sequoia Capital.
right,
Been an entrepreneur, grew a company to $1.6 billion, been a VC, still am a VC. Out of our 10 deals, we have four unicorns, meaning companies that we grew to over $1 billion in value. And arguably, I have five unicorns because we have a joint venture that's going to be one. And arguably, there will be 86 more because we have spinoffs. And so I can actually say, truthfully, in about a year, I will be on the board of about 90 unicorns. It's misleading,
dang,
but
that's crazy.
literally true, but misleading, as they say in trademark law. So I literally true. And that would require an explanation you don't need for this. But I've been creating enormous wealth, and a lot of it has been in emerging countries, as we talked about in previous programs, including
Right,
the war for innovation and the war for opportunity. Like instead of the war on terror and the war on drugs, but what if we,
right.
wanted to actually do something to increase human capital and innovation and creativity? And so I've been
Hmm.
working in hard places like South Africa or Indonesia or Argentina or the Middle East, and companies that I helped teach or mentor or in some cases invested in 2018 alone created over $10 billion of revenue, and they've created 500,000 jobs. And so
Right.
it's literally moving GDP needles of countries to use exponential innovative entrepreneurship using all the tools we pioneered in Silicon Valley. And just going back to my fun for a second. So out of 10 deals, we have four, maybe five, maybe 90 unicorns, depending upon how you want to be creative, but at least
Right.
four, which is a 40% rate. And in previous iterations of the fund, it's been not quite 40, but like 30%. And it turns out that there are about 2 dozen funds in Silicon Valley who invest at the Series A, which is the first round stage, that produce similar results consistently over time, like fund over
Right.
fund. And I became obsessed with the question, what do those people do? What do we do that is different from everybody else?
Right.
And,
What's setting you apart?
and can I teach that? Because knowledge that you can't transmit is knowledge that tends to die.
Right,
And
of course.
we urgently need this knowledge out there. So I have sort of, I say, cracked the blueprint or demystified, to steal my own tagline.
Right.
What are the five or six things that all the top innovators and the top venture funds do? And it's not the stuff you see on HBO's Silicon Valley. By the way, that is a comedy, not documentary. People tend to use that.
Noted.
And also many of the movies, that Hollywood makes, or that HBO, the shows they make about Silicon Valley, are played for drama, but they don't see the obvious in plain sight. And I want to demystify that and show people what we do and how you can apply that. So, demystifying Silicon Valley was a side attempt to codify what I've been teaching in emerging countries to everybody. And
Right.
that was a COVID project, as you may remember.
I do.
I was supposed to teach women entrepreneurs in Egypt and Morocco in April 2020. That trip did not happen, of course. And so,
Right.
locked in my downstairs office, from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m. every morning board. And so I created 150 hours of content trying to say, this is what I've been teaching in emerging countries, which is not just lean method, but hyper lean, because there's no angel money, there's no venture money. So you have to create with nothing. How do
Right.
you
You're
create with
starting from
nothing?
scratch.
Yeah, well, like literally, and so it's hyper optimized, it turns out, for people who don't have resources, for the poor, for the lower middle class, for the working class, who can't take big risks because they don't have daddy's money or a family to
Right.
fall
Right.
back on. So, how do you figure out if you have a business idea with nothing before you take that risk, before you quit the day job? And so, the next step was demystifying wealth, which was to adapt those tools of innovation, entrepreneurship to the mass market.
Right.
And someone said, "Oh, you mean you're dumbing it down?" No, no, no. It's just not toward venture capital. It's toward everything else. Like, you have a flower shop, you have a traditional business.
Hmm.
How do you use this in your daily life? You have a church you'd like to make more innovative. You have a community project,
Right.
a government which is allowed to be innovative. I mean, there's no
Right.
pro
Or even a nonprofit, dare I
or a
say.
non. Well, you're getting ahead of the movie. Yeah, you gotta hold on. You're the smart kid in class who's like ahead of the teacher, but that's cool. We're good.
Call me, call me. I got the question.
Pick me. So I have been adapting the programs to mass audiences and teaching those. I live in Vegas now, and there's a lot of need for that, obviously, like a lot of Title I high schools, which are students with a high percent on federal lunch, hence poor.
Right.
Um, and how do people use this in their daily life? And some interesting things happened, which is every time I would do this program, like my housekeeper and her kids and all their friends are like, "Hey, that sounds great about starting a new business, but I have $8,000 of credit card debt at 26%. Or what is a Roth IRA? I don't know any of these things." And so
Right.
they didn't have basic, what I call defense against the dark arts, not trying to get the lawsuit
Mm.
from J.K. Rowling here, but
Yeah, yeah, watch out.
but they couldn't defend themselves financially. So they had no basic safety, which gave them no ability to focus on their futures. They were just tunneling, trying to survive. And we know what scarcity does to people's brains. You lowered executory function, lowered fluid intelligence. You make short-term decisions. You make lots of bad things we associate with laziness or moral failure, but you do those things because you're poor. You're not poor because you do those things, if that
Right.
makes sense. We can come back to that. So I built a whole financial program to implement what people wanted because I actually teach listening to your customers. So I guess I should do it.
Right.
And what I also know is it's easier to increase earning power than to cut spending, because most financial programs are like, bad dog, stop spending on
Right. Right.
lattes,
Right.
bad, you're bad. And that doesn't work for people. So, how do you increase earning power and keep your standard of living the same and then just invest the excess? And so, how do you become a lifelong learner? How do you become a better negotiator, communicator, leader? How does education work? What are the things you can do to build lifelong relationships? Because the single greatest determinant of your financial success in life, other than just being born wealthy, is your choice of life partner. And most people screw that up too. And we can talk a lot about that because you and I are both in
Guilty
that
is
club.
charged, sir.
We are in the bad choice club. So we are not role models, but we have stories that are cautionary tales
We
that show,
do cautionary tales.
I may serve as a warning to others. And
Mm.
so demystifying wealth became this trinity of financial wealth, of personal wealth. How do you have the things in life that actually matter? Purpose,
Right.
connection, community, love, and then
Love is
create.
important, man. Love's dying on the vine out here.
It is. Let's come back to that. That's
Yeah, we'll come
a
back. We'll come
whole.
back.
I will do it. I do rants, and you're about to make me do a rant. So let's
Okay,
hold that.
okay, okay. Oh, we're pulling
And,
in.
and then creative wealth, which is how do you put your vision into the world? How do you become innovative and entrepreneurial, whether it's for profit or nonprofit? And that's the segue to the last thing. So I did a program for the World Economic Forum last year. I teach these things, by the way, all over the world, like at major business schools. I was just in London
You were
teaching
just in London. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
London School of Economics, Imperial Colleges. It's like their Caltech or MIT at their business school. And anyway, for the World Economic Forum, I had 350 people signed up in 22 countries, and they wanted me to teach venture capital innovation. So it was 6 weeks, 4 hours a week, so 24 hours of listening to me.
Right.
And Stockholm syndrome is real, by the way, if you have to listen to me that long. But here's the thing is like 70% of the kids, well, they're in their 20s, but they're kids to me.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, they're kids.
They're kids.
70% saw that, they're future change makers. Like they want to help Caribbean sugar farmers, or they want to help rural
Mhm.
healthcare in Peru, or they want to change access to systems or resources, or tip inequality, or lessening of human suffering in some
Right.
fashion. So we did it what we call a pivot, which is okay, we're going to compact these 6 programs into just a few weeks, and we're going to spend more time on how do you have exponential impact. So
Mhm.
instead of venture capital returns, we're measuring these axes of inequality or suffering. Are you actually creating outsized growth to make the world a better place, more just, more beautiful, less suffering, more access, right? And it took off like wildfire. I had people that I hadn't seen in 10 years call me saying, "Hey, my intern saw your program. Can you teach all the nonprofits we give money to do these
Oh
things?
man.
Because we're tired of throwing money away and just have it wasted. We're tired of gala dinners. We're tired of the grant writing proposals. We're tired of being on the fundraising train all the time."
And nobody's trying to even remotely think different because everybody's not only used to that system, but most of them benefit from it. So they're not really going to be interested in changing it, you know.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that's as I may have mentioned this in a previous podcast with you, but I used to have a crazy East German communist art history professor who would say, if you said that, you would not be right, but or no, you would not be wrong, but you would not be right. So yeah, that's true, but it's more complicated
Right.
because when I talk and when I talk to people about making exponential impact, as opposed to the way it's always been, here are the two constituencies that stereotypically love it. First of all, the donors, because no one wants to see their money go to linear scale when they can grow like this.
Right. When they
And the
want it to
second
grow.
group are younger people who are not jaded and cynical and bitter yet. They look at a planet dying. When we grew up, we could go to a soup kitchen and feed 20 people and feel good. Now they're like, I have to help 20 million or I have failed.
Right.
So the
Right.
people who are entrenched tend to be the ones who have the positions of grant writing, fundraising, and it's the same old status quo. And they're very hostile to the message that you could actually apply innovation principles to lessen human suffering. And the problem is anything related to markets or business as seen as inherently evil, like somehow everything about creativity that I talk about is the man with his boot on your throat, keeping you down and oppressing you,
Right.
which is funny because as someone who grew up poor, I just wanted opportunity. And I also have this weird theory, which I think is true, which is nobody suffering cares. I mean, if you're a woman with your bones being broken and you get out tonight to be safe with your children, you're not saying, well, wait a minute, are you a C corporation instead of an
Yeah.
LLC or instead of a 501(c)(3) naughty, naughty? I can't,
Right.
I'd rather just stay and be abused. Problems don't care about their solutions and people don't care. They just want to be helped.
They just want the relief.
They want the relief. And when you talk about exponential solutions, meaning ones that scale, they often have at least some economic sustainability. It is okay to make money and sustain yourself and grow and attract the kind of talent you need because who's going to take a $30,000 a year job when they have 800,000 a year at Google? They might work for 200, but you're not getting the best people, the best
Yeah, and you're not
practices.
getting the best intentionality, all of that.
Yeah. So, and by the way, I'm not the first person to say these kinds of things.
Right,
Such
right.
radical organizations as the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees has an innovation office. You can Google it right now, where they actually teach some of the things I teach, like human-centered design and lean methodology, to refugees to create their own solutions to problems in the refugee camps, like literacy programs or water distribution. So it's giving actual agency to the people you're
Right.
trying to help instead of, white first world kids parachuting in like, hey, here's my
Hey, what's up,
solution.
guys? Here's some cell phones and a
Yeah.
sandwich.
And which kind of feels a little neo-colonial, says the
Yeah,
white
like
man
very,
explaining that, right?
right?
But it's like we're just gonna give you the answers. Or instead of not give you the answers, but give you the tools, you create answers. We also, when it still existed, USAID used to have an innovation office. Ann Mei Chang was their chief innovation officer, who is a big proponent of lean methodology. And of course, RIP to
Right.
foreign development, but once upon a time there were people who cared about this. And if
Yeah.
you look at places like the Stanford Social Innovation Review, they talk a lot about how nonprofits can adopt some of these tools. The difference is I don't use the term nonprofit because to me that is an assumption that people make way too fast. I think about what is the solution? How are you helping? What's the engine of growth? How is it something people love and are using? Does it have
Right.
impact? And then the financing model you figure out kind of
Later.
last. And
Yeah.
many things would be better served as for-profit companies or hybrid mixed at a minimum. But once you make the assumption this must be a nonprofit, you're just foreclosing a whole series of potential ways to change the world. So hold your assumption as long as possible and just figure out what you're trying to do, which is make impact. And when I talk about, for example, the numbers of jobs that my programs have I mean, I'm not taking all credit because that would be wrong, but that I've helped contribute to in some
Right, right.
skill
You were a
sets.
part of it.
I mean, part of the gang. That's impact to me. And yeah, they're
Period.
for-profit jobs, and I was a for-profit investor, but those are people that have materially changed generational poverty, their communities, they're investing in their children, each other, the educational system is better. We've reversed brain drains in a lot of emerging places. So
Man.
that's impact. Impact is impact is impact. And I don't have to apologize, in my view, to people who's like, oh, you're not pure enough because you're for profit. Like, who cares? So anyway, that's kind of the constellation of things. And one of the interesting things I found is you would think that if you can create this kind of impact in emerging countries like Alexandra Township and Johannesburg, it should be pretty simple to do it in like Oakland or Las Vegas or El Paso or Wichita or Philadelphia, but it's not.
Why?
By every objective standard, the United States and Western Europe should be easier. We have rule of law, education systems, payment systems, infrastructure, but it is hard here in part because apparently knowledge is a liberal conspiracy now. And, you know, I didn't get the memo. I woke up one day and suddenly science was the enemy. It used to be people on the left were the crazies on science. I guess those poles have flipped.
Yeah, is it yo, man.
And, it's just like, what happened? So we are better suited now to be victims where someone else is at fault. And if you look at, like, Elizabeth Warren, who I like as a person, I used
All
to,
right.
met her before when she was in the Senate and at Harvard and the Consumer
Yeah, I used to be a fan.
Bureau. Yeah, I mean, she talks about the same mythology that Trump has, which is once upon a time there was a time when a single wage earner could support a whole family, and that's gone, and it's because of corporations. So every mythology has a devil, right?
Right,
So
right,
there's
right.
the devil. And Trump has the same mythology, except his devil is women and minorities in foreign countries.
Right.
And the answer is you're all wrong because, first of all, there was never a time in U.S. history where that was true. I mean, there was a few years after World War II where all of Western Europe was destroyed,
Right.
where Latin America destroyed itself with the dictatorships. They used to lead the world in electronics research. Fun fact. Asia was destroyed. We don't talk about the 30 million Chinese killed by the Japanese invasions or what Japan did to Asia.
That was man.
And it's crazy. So we had the monopoly, and all the talent came to the United States. We got we smuggled all the Nazis we liked, which is why we had a
Yep.
rocket program at NASA.
Yep.
So we had the monopoly on the world. So that was a very limited time, which doesn't exist and never will exist again because of Marshall Plan, because of rebuilding. The other thing is, who had that dream? Well, my family was poor white trash. We didn't come over on the Mayflower. We were on prison ships where they basically said to the prisoners in Dublin and London, "Hey, you marry the prostitute, get on the boat, we'll let you out.
Yeah,
Just
have fun.
don't come back."
Right.
Like that, we didn't have those jobs.
That's true.
Not to be direct, but you didn't have those jobs. People looking like you,
He said that
before
too.
Title VII, women didn't have those jobs. So I mean, it was, to the extent it happened, it was a very, very small number of people, and it can never happen again, and was a historical accident. So lying to people and pandering by telling them that the world is victimizing you is wrong. And we have extremes on the right and left because people don't feel the great middle consensus is real or exists anymore. And so we get the election like we just had, and we get people checking out, and we get rage and anger. And
Yeah.
here's the fun fact: nobody cares. The world's not coming to save you. No one
It's
cares
totally
if
real,
you're a
man.
victim. I mean, and there are legitimate victim stories because people are actually really hurt.
And there's bad stuff happening, and there are
Yeah, I
real
mean, like,
people making it happen. But you're right. At the end of
we
the
used
day,
to we used to
nobody
own
really does
people.
care, and no one's
No
coming
one's
to save you. Um,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
and as we look at the system from my point of view, I'm not that smart, but dude, when I look at at the mix of horror between whatever the new layoffs are in Silicon Valley and whatever is either just been dismantled or there are plans to dismantle, the Department of Education, or it's not, like it feels crazy, bro.
Yeah. And there's real
And
stuff.
overwhelming, overwhelming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, black households have like average wealth of 26,000 compared to
Yeah,
white families, which are like 10x that, right? Because
right.
inheritance, like, and it's real. I'm not saying it's not real, but no one's coming to save you. And
Yeah.
so the greatest tool of substantive economic opportunity and equality ever created is entrepreneurship and innovation. And I say that with no hint of irony. And it is the great equalizer. Instead of, my kids send me these fun memes like, let's eat the billionaires, let's eat Jeff
Yeah.
Bezos and string them up. And I'm like, how about I teach every poor kid in this country what Jeff Bezos did and how you can replicate it? And you don't
And
have to
show you
build
how to do it.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can solve whatever you want in your community. Like I talk to church groups sometimes as your friendly local atheist. I'm honorary Muslim and Jesuit apparently because I work with
Yes, yes.
mosques and you know and Jesuit
Brother
community
David
centers.
X. You know what I'm saying?
David X, yeah, or actually, or David the 10th is what you meant, right?
10X. You know what I'm
David,
saying? That's right. Oh
um,
my God.
there's a story behind that. We don't have time.
Yeah.
But I guess it's an X. Okay, that makes sense. That's the but I'd say like, why don't you funnel like all your community donations into your own kids and teach them innovation and instead of giving to United Way, invest in them. And like,
Right.
it doesn't matter where the change comes. Exponential thinking, innovative entrepreneurship are the tools out. We have nothing else left. We will never restore middle class. We will never have stability. We'll never have opportunity without it. The world is flying to greater disparities than we have seen in a long time. And the only way to close that gap is to teach everybody what the rich know and what the tech insiders know and how to
Okay.
adapt to their own lives. That's the only
So
way
let
out.
me throw this at you. So let me throw this at you. Most of the guys in the Resilient Men's group that we do now on Sundays, for those that don't know, we do the Resilient Men's group on Sundays from 11 to 1, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we got a bunch of people from the UK that are on because that's 7 to 9 UK time. Okay. Most of those guys, I don't want to say married. I would say it's probably 60% of the guys in are newly divorced guys, newly divorced, right?
Yep.
And so the other 40 are in a marriage
They're
and
about to be
happy
divorced.
and
I'm sorry, I
happy.
didn't
Yeah.
finish your sentence.
and so they've got the married with children group, and then we've got the newly divorced group. Okay. So what I'm wondering is for the average guy, and I am big generalizing right now just to throw the question out. But let's say the guy is 40 years old, 43. He is newly divorced. Um, he has one kid that he's got to pay child support for. He has a job, but he doesn't really have any savings that are worth mentioning. Where does a guy like that begin to get stable financially? What is he doesn't know anything.
Yeah, well, let me just before I answer the question, just give
Yeah,
a bit of sympathy there because I've been there and I know you've been there. We
I'm still on fire, kind of.
Yeah, no, this is not a manosphere talk because I think a lot of
Yeah,
it's very dangerous stuff, which promotes some things that are really
not
hurtful.
okay.
But it's hard to live in a world where, as a man, you're never loved unconditionally. Like kids get loved, dogs get loved, women sometimes get loved, but we provide, and if we
Yeah,
don't provide, we are nothing, and
invisible. We don't count.
we just don't matter, and we are treated in a system that, I mean, the family law system is inhumane and unjust. I mean, what I went through was appalling. And just by background, I mean, people can Google this. Like, I did a lot of work on the Federal Violence Against Women Act. I used to be on a rape crisis hotline. Like, I'm not some crazy anti-feminist or anything. Like,
Yeah,
I believe equality for everybody all the way across the
period.
board, which includes us
Same,
too. But
same.
the injustice and inhumanity of a system which just sees us as, abusers and pedophiles and pockets of money to be pillaged from without any recourse, where you can lie, cheat, steal, get the house, get the kids, get the money. You can lie to the court and still get everything. So why
Man, it's
wouldn't you?
crazy,
Why
bro.
wouldn't you? Which is among the reasons why choice of life partner really matters so much, because if you're not aligned on money, you're not aligned on values, you're just being drained, and you're going
Yeah.
to spend a lot of those out. I mean, the sad fact is a lot of those hours, you're not rebuilding your finances. You're just paying out, you know, the settlement to
You're
your
treading
ex.
water, just waiting
You're
for
just
sweet
surviving while
death.
everyone else gets to have the house you paid for and the kids get that life you paid for, but you don't. So it's a brutal system. And so I just want to say, like, for those who feel rage and helpless, you're not alone, and you're right. And this is not the time to talk about what to do about it, because
Yeah, 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 yeah,
we're
yeah.
not legislators. We can't fix that,
No, but to acknowledge that,
but it's real
the rough guy I just described, um, he exists all over America. You know what I
everywhere. Every one of my divorced friends, it's quiet desperation and rage. You don't want to talk about it because you don't want to sound like the guy who's complaining, because we don't do that. But
mean? Yeah,
once we open up, it's like the torrent just floods out, and you're not alone. You're not isolated. We all feel alone, which is ironic,
yeah.
'cause we all feel the same thing, which by definition means you're not alone. But we are taught to just, the rugged individualism, and
Brennan Barrett.
we don't show shame. We just get up and work harder,
Yeah,
and so it's tough.
it
So
is.
there's lots of answers, but there's sort of tactics, there's vision, and there's multi-year strategy. And I don't want to omit any of them. So let me just maybe
Right,
outline
right.
quickly. We can go into detail on each of those silos.
No,
So
it's fine.
from, there's stop, drop, roll, like you're on fire. By the way, as many stop, drop, roll, things as we did in school, I thought I'd be on fire a lot more as an adult. Never been on
Me
fire.
too. It's
It's
good
like,
that
oh,
we're
this is
not
going to
though.
happen a
It's good.
lot.
It's good that
No,
that was misconstrued.
I was misrepresented, but you stop, drop, roll, which is okay. Where are you? Do you have debt? Oftentimes men are settled with credit card debt
Right.
because you're the one left to pay, even if she incurred
Yeah,
it.
you got to split it. Yeah,
Or no, well, the creditors don't care. They can come after you. So you're kind of
that's
stuck
true.
realistically, because creditor law and family law are different, at least in the United States. Don't know about the UK.
Right,
So
right.
anyway, as a practical matter, you're paying for one or the other, because your alimony is paying for it, or you're paying for it, or both. So you need to prioritize. And when I teach financial literacy, I have like the red zone, the orange zone, the yellow zone. So the red zone is any debt over 10%, you got to just retire no matter what. Extra jobs, extra income will come back to that. You just got to get rid of that stuff, because the secret to life is compound interest, and it works
Hmm.
for you or it works against you. So you
Okay.
got to get the debt gone as soon as possible before you can make any other decisions. Then you get into things like, I need to start building a cushion of 3 to 6 months. I need to start investing in my employer match with my retirement plan. Again, for you UK folks, this is going to vary.
Might not apply. Right.
So I don't know enough about UK retirement
Yeah,
law,
yeah, 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 fair.
so not trying to omit you, but you want to start building money for retirement as quickly as possible. And there are ways you can catch up, especially if you're an entrepreneur. That's in the long term. But you want to start maxing out your Roth if you're eligible in the United States. You want to take your employer match. You want to have a savings account. There's a series of steps, which I'm not going to go through all here, but you just want to get out of debt and start slowly building. It's never too late. Compound interest, the sooner you do it, the better. Investing at 18 is better than investing at 38. However, if you don't do it, you're still making a mistake. So you need to be able to do it.
Right.
But going back to one of the
Started.
things I said earlier, is increasing earning power is your better bet. I mean, taking side hustles, driving Uber, delivering food for DoorDash. I mean, that it can get you out of an emergency, but it's not a long-term answer.
It's not the answer. Yeah, it's not the way. It's a band-aid, but it's not the
Yeah,
real
it's
fix.
just to survive. You're just treading water, but you need to think exponentially about lots of things. So you have to think exponentially about your finances, which is compound interest, and the importance of it. I mean, one parlor trick I show people, like when I teach kids, is I show them, like, here's $100 bill from 1981. And I say, if you invested in this in the stock market, what's it worth today? And the answers are like, I don't know, $1,000,
Mm.
thousand. The answer is 38 $3,784. And if
You
you take
say
this one from,
30,000?
no, 3,800, but if you take this
3,000,
one
right.
from 1950, it's worth almost $400,000,
Damn.
because it doubles every like 6, 7 years, because the stock market is about 11% a year.
Right.
And no one believes you until you do the math with them. Like, so you got to have exponents on your side, which is you got to start saving. You got to put it not in crypto, not in houses, not in
Right, right, right.
thing, but investing. And then, so you invest first, and you spend what's left. You don't do it the other way around. So another form of exponential thinking is small systems and processes. You don't rise to your level of aspirations, you fall to your systems. So how do you
Mm,
automate the kind of investing that you need? How do you automate the habits? Because your habits determine who you are in 5 years. And we have ways of betraying strangers all the time. Like if I saw this $100 bill on the ground, I'd pick it up and say, wow, it could have been from an orphan kid. It could have been from a billionaire. I'm just taking
right,
somebody
right.
else. But we do that to ourselves because our future self is also a stranger. I'm going
Mm,
to spend this frivolous thing I don't need today,
dang.
and I'm cheating myself in 20 years. Like I was at a
Why you
graduation.
mess with my head like that, David? I didn't expect you to do that.
No, how do
Like,
you not expect that? Are you
dang.
new? Come
This is true.
on.
True.
Um, so I was at a graduation party for a high school kid recently because he's, the son of a friend of mine,
Mm,
and he got $1,000 from his grandparents,
mm,
in a red envelope, and it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna go buy whatever frivolous
right.
toy. He said,
Two
here's a question.
PS5s or whatever.
And I said, here's a question. If you put that in a Roth IRA, how much will you have when you're 65? And he's like, I don't know, like
Yeah.
like double maybe. And I was like, no, you'll have 127,000. And if you wait till you're 72, you'll have a quarter million. And he doesn't believe, no one believes you. But math is math.
Damn.
Math doesn't care about your feelings. It just is. So you've got to small incremental improvements add up, systems add up, investments add up. But where do you get the money to invest, right? So you need to build a long-term strategy to figure out how you're going to improve your earning power. How do you become a better leader and communicator? I can talk about this. How do you build businesses using the tools I talk about, whether it's high tech or low tech, doesn't matter. It's the same set of tools. There's some things you wouldn't use, but fundamentally it's the same stuff.
Right.
And you use that to just catch up as fast as you can. Under the US tax code, you can do all sorts of crazy things as a small business owner. You have the ability, if you employ yourself, you get all the deductions, which
Right.
you get depending upon how you structure your business, can get long-term capital gains from things. You can have your own 401k, your own employer match because you employ yourself, your own defined
Right.
benefits plan. Like you can put $230,000 a year away pre-tax. Now you'll pay tax later when you take it out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But you got it.
but you can catch up fast. But
Right.
you can't do that if you don't make it.
Right.
So the fixation you should have. So first of all, get the fire put out. Stop, drop, roll. Get out of get out of the hole. The first rule of getting a whole club is stop digging, and then
Right.
you climb out. Once you have stability, you have to have clear-headed decisions about how do I increase my earning power? How do I create systems and processes where I'm investing back in myself, in my future self, that stranger in 20 years that may not seem like it's going to exist, but you're going to be 58, not 38 someday. So you better start thinking about that. And you make some sacrifices because look, there's pain. I can have pain when I'm 65 eating Alpo dog food, or I can have pain now by not getting the fun toy.
Right.
That $100,000 car could be worth millions of dollars, which taking
Yeah,
4% every year is enough to live on and travel the world and do all I want.
of course.
So, when do you want the pain? Which self are you betraying? Current self or
Right.
future self? Because it is you that's being
Damn.
hurt. So there's no one else you're hurting, and nobody ultimately cares. No one's going to say, "Oh, we'll fix it for you." Like there's all sorts of things that are evolutionarily adaptive. Like as mammals, to survive in the African savannah, we had to just eat now whatever is in front of
Right,
us.
right, right, right.
Scarcity, it's what you do, but it's maladaptive in this world of consumer credit and having to live for
Yeah,
all these extra years. Like eating now, metaphorically, is the wrong answer. We're betraying ourselves. So
right.
you have to, but but again, you have to build systems and processes for that. So how do we start building businesses? And I can come back to some of these tools, and I'm skipping over them. Like, how do you become a better communicator? How do you build a business? I haven't answered those questions. There are real
Well,
answers.
I have a quick question for you. It's going to sound a little random probably, but like one of the things you see on TikTok a lot and on Instagram is everybody saying like, "Yo, man, you need to get an LLC, put it in your name. You could do this, you could do that." I see people driving G-Wagons. I see people doing this and that. And so it's like, how necessary is that for real? And what are the real benefits? But what are some of the real drawbacks? Because I say drawbacks in parentheses because the way I see it being sold is like it feels more like a hustle than a legitimate business move. And so I'm just curious.
Well, you need to. So years ago, someone told me he set up an LLC for his son in California. And just to set up the story, in California, the franchise taxes are $800 a year,
Right.
plus you have filing fees and other things. So it's like, in accounting and taxes, this is called like $1,000 a year. You just, you know, take this and light a match to it,
Just to show up. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just to
just for
show
the
up.
price of doing business. And I said, so why does he have an LLC? And he's like, to show him what real business is. And I was like, and I ran a spreadsheet and said, if you took that $1,000, and you can see where this is going to go, right? And put every year from 18, 19, 20, 21, and put it in the
Yeah.
S&P 500, your kid would have, like a few $1 million by the time they're 65. Like you're literally lighting a match to future money. And you're giving it to California. Broke though California is, it doesn't need your contribution. So
Real, real.
you're just throwing money away if you're doing it for no good reason. However, if you have a business, a real business, you should have a form of incorporation, whether it's corporation or LLC. That's a separate discussion because there are lots of advantages. It limits liability, it gives you more deductibility of certain expenses, it can lower certain kinds of self-employment tax,
Right.
which is again, these are US tax issues. Apologies to my
Right,
UK.
right.
I
UK
don't
people, just keep walking with us. Keep walking.
but you have analogies. I just don't know what they are, and I don't want to pretend to give you advice.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah, totally.
like we have self-employment taxes here of 15%. So if I pay myself through an LLC a salary of like 100,000 and take a dividend of 100, I've lowered my taxes by $15,000 by not paying
Mm,
self-employment on the other 100. So there's lots of reasons why it matters, but you need a real business. So you always start with what is the business? What am I trying to accomplish? And then you come up with the form of organization that makes the most sense based upon what it is you're doing. You don't just reflexively like, oh, all the cool kids have LLCs. So, for example, if you're a venture-backed company,
that's how it's starting to feel. That's why I asked it the
well,
way I did. You know what I
no,
mean?
but like, but everything has a kernel of truth somewhere, but then they go off into crazy land because they're forgetting what it was about. For example, if you want to be a venture-backed company, you can't be an LLC really because VCs only invest in C corporations. So
Right,
if that's your goal and you set up as an LLC, you're going to spend $50,000 on doing your mistake.
right.
And if you don't make what's called an S corporation election, that tax benefit I just told you, you're not going to get.
Goes
So
away.
this is for training professionals. And I do teach the stuff in my classes, but you don't do things because the cool kids are doing it. You know why they're doing it.
And
So
you know why you're doing it, right?
and so
Like,
you need to build a real business first with products, margins, revenues, customers, visceral, deep felt love, what we call product market fit. People can't do without it. It has a growth engine. They tell their friends, advertising gets you so many customers, whatever it is. When you have a real business, you need to figure out how you're going to protect it and what you're trying to do. But you don't start with, I'm going to go to the end of the book and just do what I think that is, and you skip all the hard work. So
right,
build a business first, and the form of organization is answered by what you're trying to do. But as a general matter, I do love LLCs for businesses. I love S corporation elections, which sometimes does not make sense, but often does. So your individual circumstances will vary. And that's
right.
because it limits liability. The audit rate for companies is virtually non-existent now. So you can deduct the hell out of everything. I mean, do it legally, obey the rules, not
All
giving
right.
advice not to, but your audit rate's lower, just saying. And you can set up your own employer-employee relationship to do some of the things I talked about to catch up on those retirement things, which you can't do if you're just self-employed on a Schedule C. Which
Right. I see
my
what you're
British
saying.
friends is basically if you just work for yourself and have a sole proprietorship, you report it on your personal taxes, or you set up a separate company and work for that. Better to do that for lots of reasons. But you need a real business first. Otherwise, you're just throwing money away. I mean,
Yeah,
setting up
the house of cards always falls.
setting up an LC for a minor kid just to show what business is dumb. Just show them what a real business is, or show her what a
Just
real,
do it. Make
or
real
build a
business.
real business. And that's the better way to do it.
Yeah.
And
No,
not
I
junior
love that,
achievement
man.
1975 with business plans. Show them how we build modern businesses with lean experiments and data, and like that. That's show them how to innovate. That's
You
what.
were recently, I want to say recently, because I feel like it was like a year, was it a year ago that you were doing this stuff in Los Angeles with those kids?
Yeah, in
Remember?
East LA. Yeah.
Will you talk about that really quick? Because I thought that was really cool. And I mean, I'm saying this because I want our viewers and I want our listeners to get a sense of the work that you're actually doing, not just talking.
Yeah. So for whatever it's worth, there are lots of people who know the stuff I know. Like there's a lot of high-end venture investors and entrepreneurs
Mm,
know the tricks. I don't call them tricks because it implies there's a part, there's fundamentals, I guess, but the
right.
things I know, but they're not out teaching in poor communities. They're making an extra few $100 million investing. And, there's this weird thing in life called enough.
Right.
If once you have enough, you don't need to keep earning more, then you should be focused on what's your legacy. And by the way, part of wealth to me is what you give back to the world. You know,
Totally.
I will have people whose granddaughters and grandsons will have their lives change who will never know I existed or my name. That's legacy, right? And you don't need anything more spiritual other than to say, I have touched the lives of people I will never meet.
Yeah.
So so it matters to me to spend the rest of my life. So anyway, at East LA, so I was working in a series of community centers. Like almost all of the families are Central American, first generation refugees. 0% speak English at home. Like maybe 10% of the parents have a high school degree.
Mm.
And you know, the poverty rate's very high. Not like everyone is, but it's high. And I went initially to talk to him about financial literacy and entrepreneurship programs. And he looked at the stuff I was teaching and said, "What's this trauma stuff?" And I said, "Oh, I talk about how trauma and scarcity changes the brain at a physiological level, whether it's lack of resources, persistent racism, episodic violence, like, you know, wars or sexual violence, or, you know,
Yeah.
being beaten up or, you know, being a victim of a crime. I mean, lots of things, or being beaten as a kid, like I was, right?
Right.
So trauma is real. And if you don't understand it, you can't make long-term durable change because people will revert back to the
To
trauma
that
causes
fear,
you to go back to
to
the
that.
things that
Yeah.
hurt you, which is why, like, we all know that woman went back to the bad boy who beats her again. And but that's
Yeah.
what you'd expect from the brain science. It turns out
Right. It's true.
that's the
It's
rule,
very
not the exception. Which is why women in their 20s are such a disaster because they go to the bad boys because most of them are sexual assault survivors as teenage girls and as girls.
true.
Another topic we can come back if you want. But
Yes.
so anyway, so he had 1,100 kids in the programs and 50 camp counselors. So he said, "Will you teach the counselors, because we're mandated state reporters, trauma, communication, leadership?"
Right. Right. Right.
It was supposed to be just a few hours turned to the entire day. You know, at the beginning, they're like, "Who is this white guy teaching me crap at 8 in the morning?" But they couldn't get enough of it. And
Wow.
more, and I still get emails from some of them, after this time. And the what I'm trying to put together in my copious free time, because I'm actually taking a bunch of companies public, so I do have a day job. But what I love to do, and I'm trying to do this in other places too, is run a program for a year where the kids learn innovation, entrepreneurship, and financial literacy deeply. And then
Right.
they go back and then they run programs. And this is the program I offer for churches. Like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to teach them how to do it, like deep dive. Now they're going to set up and apply it. Now, I don't care what they build. They can build something to help with immigration assistance or
Right.
food assistance or showing small business owners how to be more innovative or financial literacy for their grandparents. I don't care. They can do what they want. They design the metrics, they design the tests, they design they're going to build, measure, learn, and they're going to present data and know that it works. And we're going to keep doing it till they nail it. You don't scale till you nail. And and then I'd like for the kids to come back and then teach, because then the people teaching look like the people they're
And
teaching.
then we have
And
that
that is
authentic community connectivity and that each one teach one type of psychology that the country actually needs to start living by as soon as possible.
and it's exponential because I'm one white dude. I'm not exponential. My cells will decompose in 30, 40 years when I die, and that's it. So if I don't have 10,000 people who carry this message to the future, it dies with me. And that
It
is,
won't. I'm gonna try to be one of them.
we'll do this together, but we need to like double and double and double again. Like we need to be
Yeah.
like, we need to spread like a virus to get that
No.
message out there. But there's another thing other than just virality, which is, I don't know if you follow like 12-step programs,
I mean, I was in Codependence
yeah.
Anonymous. So yeah.
So all of them. So it's interesting because what I'm going to say is complicated. I'm not trying to make light of stuff, but
Oh, it's
from
okay.
from a purely recidivism perspective, when you go back to your addictions,
Right.
the first 11 steps of the 12-step program typically don't do very much. Only that by that one measure. They do other things like they make you apologize to people. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they do matter. But the one step that really, really matters, if you want people not to go back to their old addictions and relapse, is the 12th step, which is help somebody else, become a mentor to somebody else. That one has huge effects. And so having people teach does a few things. It makes it viral. It makes them learn it because you don't know
It
anything until
makes
you
them
teach it. And
responsible.
it now makes you encode it in a way that makes you a leader and role model, and you have to live it because people are looking up to you. So if you want to heal the economic trauma of our country and our world, and it is real,
And
and it's
it's
real
deep.
for men, the way to heal that is we become teachers. And if we don't do that, we're missing a very important part of the process. So it makes us learn it better. It makes us heal and makes it stick because other people are looking up to us because we're sponsors now,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's viral. So we have to have people become teachers. We have to. This message has to get out there. And this isn't like, I joke, for those who know who Dave Ramsey is, he's basically a cult leader, and it's mostly garbage. If you want to be bad at money, Dave Ramsey is the way to be bad at money. Um, but it's very effective because it's very viral, and he has like
Right,
this $50 million a year empire because people, but it's like a cult, right? Where it's like
right.
your leader says it must be this way, and I don't want stuff like that because that's nonsense. I just want you to believe in kindness and helping real people and being scientific and data driven. Like as long as we're cool with that, there's a lot of room for differences of opinion.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Like,
yeah.
but there's core values because they work and because they matter. So, we can disagree about a lot of things, but as long as you care about innovation and progress and making the world slightly better and making yourself slightly better, I'm cool and I'll help anybody. But that's what I'm trying to build. I first got to get these IPOs I'm working on out the door
Yeah.
because that's sucking every amount of my sleep out of my body. But that's the goal the rest of my life. So I think we got on this question. She said, "What am I up to?" And I don't know how long we're into this, but
Well,
you
I
know,
mean, I think we got a good sense of it, man. I think we got a good sense of it. I think what the main important thing though is that men understand that it does get super dark and it's easy to lose hope because you don't see the tragedy that's befallen upon you. You don't see it as the opening of a new door because the new good thing hasn't happened yet. The new good thing hasn't happened. I had this situation and I talked about it already a few shows ago, so I'm going to just quickly say it. I stumbled into a day that was a pretty crazy day in my history, and I didn't realize it. I started thinking about what a horrible day that was. And then all of a sudden, it was like I got struck by lightning. I was like, if that horrible day doesn't happen, then that doesn't happen. If that horrible thing doesn't happen, then that doesn't happen. And all these horrible things added up to you being more healthy, traveling the world more, finding better people to be with and around. Like that anniversary is actually a good thing because it's an opening to a whole new door, a whole new you, and all these different things. But in the moment, I felt horrible and I was super suicidal at the time because all of the good things weren't even a flicker in the darkest horizon. It was just darkness. And I think it's hard for guys when they're in that state to recognize that good things are absolutely on the horizon, but you got to tread water, you got to center your head and heart and then take positive actions on your own behalf and things will start to change.
I'm a much darker person than that, but I'm still optimistic. No, I mean, well, like, look, people say everything happens for a reason. I'm like, babies were thrown in ovens in Auschwitz. There are kids being murdered in Gaza. There's like genocide happens. Like people steal from you, like your ex lies to the court and they take your house. I mean, like sometimes bad things just happen, and there's no like, oh, there's a silver lining. No, it's just evil, and evil happens. And one of the hard lessons to teach your kids is no good deed goes unpunished. Like often our kindness and our generosity to other people is manipulated because
Weaponized to the highest
givers
degree.
as givers we don't have limits, but neither do takers, neither to high functioning narcissists, and
Right.
many exes are structurally high functioning narcissists, by using, and that's a longer discussion to explain that, but just I assume many people resonate with that.
No, it's
I
true.
feel heads nodding even though they haven't watched because this is on delay,
They
but
are. They are
they're
nodding.
nodding. You know what I mean.
Yeah,
But but that said, you can believe that what happened to you is pure evil and has no justification and was a wrong in an absolute moral sense. Yet your only choice is to wake up and say, nevertheless, I shall rise and I shall do better and I shall overcome, because what else are you going to do?
that's
And
true. You just
you
fold and
have the,
crumble.
yeah, you have the capacity to create beauty from tragedy, and the choice is yours. The choice is yours.
Well, see, that's where the stoicism comes in, right? Because these things do happen. And so, because these tragedies happen, and we may not always have an immediate sense of the wisdom in it, or maybe it just never has wisdom. Maybe you never even get to that point. But you do have the ability and the choice to find a way to not only overcome it, but to become a better human in the process. I think
Yeah.
that's,
Yeah, and I would say that I would agree with that. I also think it would be great to get to people before they mess their lives up.
oh my God.
Like, I mean, so I'm taking myself as like one of my mottos, which I should have started with, is be the person you needed to save you when nobody was there.
Dude,
and nobody was there. No one taught me this. I made every mistake in the book. Like I'll just take like we'll take relationships for example. There's certain things that when you're look, I was effectively a professional level athlete. I used to referee Division One of professional soccer in
Yeah,
college.
yeah, yeah.
So I wasn't athletic in that sense, but I could run 60 miles.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was doing high level stuff.
You were doing stuff. Yeah.
I was, top of my game and everything academically, intellectually. I was, state champion, world champion, and everything I touched. But women didn't want me because I was poor. They wanted the
Right.
bad boy, right? Who was rich.
Right.
And now that I'm wealthy, I could probably have anybody. And I'm resentful and full. I'm mad about that. Like you didn't want me then.
There's
And
there's a rapper you've never heard of. His name is Mike Jones. I'm gonna send you one of his songs, and you're gonna like it.
no, I already know what it's going to say because it's like, now that they're like, in their 30s with two kids and
Exactly.
like, oh, safe, non-threatening man. And by the way, you don't, I'm not any of those things. Like
He said, he says
I don't want to
I
do
think the song is
TMI
called
here.
back then. He's like, back then you didn't want me, now I'm hot, you're all on me. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's, I get, so and so anyone that would just have sex with me, I was like, that's the one I'm going to marry because you've, you've chosen, you win.
There we go.
And by
Yeah.
the way, you don't understand narcissism, mental illness is real. They're like, schizophrenia and manic depression, like that stuff's not to mess
Yes,
with. And so
bro.
all the signs we overlook as young men because we're so desperate just to have someone want us back.
Yeah.
And we fall for the romance stuff, not knowing that we're like the suckers who are just going to give the house and the kids and everything over. And there's not unaligned values on money. Like we have different money scripts. And so I have scripts about saving and investing in a future, and her scripts are spend everything and bankrupt and run credit card debts on secret cards in your name you didn't know you had because they took them out.
Not the secret card.
The hundreds of thousands of debt that you didn't know you had because was taken out with your name and all the money you made was wasted and stuff. So,
Yeah.
we're just so eager to jump into stuff as young
And life
men.
feels so lonely, right?
Yeah,
Like we're not at peace with ourselves. So we really put too much weight on whoever this other person is to to kind of make everything go away. And then not only when they fail to do that, but then when they go away, you just feel like
yeah.
doubly lost. You know
But
what I mean?
there's so many things, even if you want that relationship, and you should, because relationships matter, human love matters. Knowing the ways that you build a long-term relationship and can screen people out for the stuff that actually is durable. So, you
Yeah, so
know,
that you don't step into that
yeah.
insane situation.
And so like one of the things I sometimes like one of the things I teach, actually, can I do a screen share quickly and just show you
Yeah, hit the screen share.
let me see if I can do this here. So I'm going to show you, oops, that didn't work. I'll try that again. I got to be better at this.
I believe in you.
I can do, I'm a tech person. I can figure tech.
Hey, now if this doesn't say Silicon Valley Elite, what
All
does?
right. So you see this? Can you see the picture now?
I do now.
Okay. So this is one of the things I teach people. So I have a question for you. Do you know who these people are on the left and the right?
So, first of all, one of my favorite couples in America, the Gottmans over here on the left. Okay.
Julie and John Gottman,
And
Dr. John and
everybody, if you, first of all, any one of my listeners, if I haven't told you about the Gottmans by now, I have failed you. These two have studied love. Um, they've written about it. They have the data. They've observed all the different patterns, and they're really awesome. The guy on the right, I'm blanking on his name, but I do know, or I'm 99% sure that he's a hostage negotiator guy who
Yeah.
people kind of
Okay.
discover lies, liars, and how to kind of observe these people and think about them, right?
Yeah. So his name is Chris Voss. And by the way, he's a
Chris Voss.
super, super nice guy. But I found this grumpy picture of him. It was hard to find a grumpy picture because he's always smiling and he's a nice person. So I'm making him look mean because I want to illustrate a purpose. So when I teach like young men, like at the high school age or in college,
Yeah.
like I say, what do these people know about the secret of life that you don't? And of course, the Gottmans are like, Berkeley hippie,
Right.
there's no Birkenstocks in the picture, but you might feel
But
that.
they're there.
I don't know if they wear
There.
Birkenstocks. I'm making fun of them a little bit, but they're incredible. They set out, I'm going to stop the share. They set out to study what makes couples last for like 30 to 50 years.
Yep.
And am I back on full screen or?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
Okay, great.
Everything's great. Yeah.
And so what makes them last? And it turns out attuned active listening and some other stuff, but just hold that
Yeah.
for thought. Chris Voss, by this is his book. It's called Never Split the Difference. So he would negotiate with like bank robbers and terrorists, and
Right.
used to be you go shoot them up and people would die.
Right.
And he's like, that doesn't work. And so the book title comes from Never Split the Difference, because the way we negotiate is you want to buy for 100, I want to sell at 50. So let's split the difference and call it 75.
Right. Right. Right.
But if you have two hostages, you can't say, well, can you kill the bank teller and send out the customer? We'll split the difference. Just call it a day, right?
Right.
You can't do that because everything's on the line. So how do you
Yeah.
negotiate when everything matters? And it turns out his secret is also attuned active listening, which is the ability for someone to feel heard. I mean, we have fear circuitry as mammals. And so we get wound up and we can't reason. We're emotional. We're not logical because our mammalian brain and our reptilian brain are all like wound up. And so you have to
Yeah.
diffuse that. And by the way, fun fact, he started as a crisis counselor too. So I feel a kindred spirit with him,
Wow.
you know, because he
Okay.
did that for a while. Is like, and that he's like learned how to get people off the ledge a bit, you know, metaphorically, like
Yeah.
how to
Yeah. Yeah.
get people to come so you can actually have a discussion. And so here's the interesting thing about this is, so whether it's relationships that last, and I mean like last for 40 years,
Right.
getting people to do what you want in hostage situations, business, leadership, community, everything. This is the secret to being an effective CEO. Not being a jerk, like you know, that's what we think because we see like all these like Hollywood
You got to
movies.
be like Jobs.
But that's no, Jobs was an asshole. And like, if I can say that in your program, but he was, and he was a terrible
Yeah.
person. He was better after Pixar, but he was still horrible and stole
Yes.
people's ideas and made people miserable. But
Yes.
99.9% of CEOs aren't like that, but they don't make good movies. So we don't
That's
talk about it.
true. Yeah.
But the ability to make people feel heard makes you a better leader. It makes people look up to you. It makes you able to negotiate for what you want. You don't get in life what you deserve. You get what you negotiate. Repeat that. You get what you negotiate, not what you deserve.
That's hurting me, but yes.
It hurts, but it's true. So this is the best negotiation book that's ever been written. And it's the same stuff as the Gottman's
Okay,
teach.
hold on. Are you saying that guy's better than Gavin DeBecker?
I don't know, Gavin. Maybe I'm a scientist, so I'm willing to be proven wrong. Tell me about Gavin.
Oh, Gavin DeBecker wrote The Gift of Fear. That's the first book you should read.
Okay, I
Um,
will.
Basically, it's about the primal thing of fear, like how we have it and how it comes from our animal brain. But over the years, technology and what we call civilization makes us ignore it, and then it costs us in major ways. Because fear is a good thing if you know how to synthesize it and make sense of what's actually happening.
Okay, well, I will hold. I can be disproven because that's the nature of evidence. So I will
I
read
just
it.
love Gavin DeBecker. I'm sure
Okay.
they're both awesome, but that's all. I'm just
Well, as a side story, I was teaching. I mentioned I taught at Imperial College recently at the business school, and one
yeah.
of the kids raised their hand and said, like, "Hey, our negotiation professor said don't read that book. It's a bad book." And
Really?
I was like, "What?" I was like, "What did he teach you to read?" And I knew what the answer because it's the Harvard School stuff, like like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
getting to yes, like what's your best negotiate alternative outcome and
Yeah,
most
like,
rational, and like that stuff is fantasy world. And the interesting thing is before this book came out, the law firms where I was a partner at, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years bringing these people from the FBI to teach us the secret
right,
negotiation technique.
stuff. Yeah, 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 yeah,
And
yeah.
and we had such an unconscionable advantage over other people. Like when someone started throwing around terminology that made me think they were Harvard School, I'm like, we're going to take them for everything. Like we will
You're just like,
fleece
I'm
them.
about to drag
And
him for real
and
right
we
now.
did every time, and it was our secret weapon. So when the book was published, I was like, "Oh man, the secret's gone." But
Don't
but
tell my secret. Yeah,
and because the interesting thing is people aren't rational, and like what's the most rational solution? Like people aren't. They're emotional and they're upset and they're wound up.
yeah.
It's $1 billion deal. And here's the interesting thing I told the kid. I said, so I gave that story, and I said, and the other thing is one of the metrics I use to measure myself as a major partner at one of the world's biggest law firms is the following. After deals worth over $10 million within 6 months, 40% of the time, the other side CEO would call me to hire me. Listen to that again. The other side CEO would call me to hire me. And he would say, "You're the only guy that listened. You're the only one that understood my business. My
Really?
lawyer was just a jerk trying to like bill me for negotiating commas
Right.
and semicolons and fighting about dumb stuff. You're the only one that said what matters to you. Let me make sure I understand what you're going for. What are your goals? How do we make this work for everyone? You're the only one that listened."
Damn, homie.
And so yeah, it's a secret weapon. So anyway, why did I get on this? So one of the things that so there's lots of mistakes young men make. One is they don't know how to negotiate in life.
Right.
We don't know how to listen and communicate. We're listening to be able to think of what we're going to say next and what our response is, and to show we're smart, or to share a story that we had, like, oh, I was in Cabo too, and can you believe what happened to me? Like, no, just listen. And so we need to be better about not interrupting and listening. And we're both interrupting each other because we're both that way. But like, we need to be better, right, as men. And
Yeah, I still need to be better at it, and I apologize in advance to
no,
everybody.
I'm interrupting you. I'm doing more of it because I'm amped up on caffeine, so it
I
happens.
get juiced, man. And plus, we haven't spoken in a while, so like,
But this is a secret skill, and also for relationships, because like, one of the things I tell my kids is, when you find someone you think you want to be with, I'm going to give you a few books. One of them is one of the Gottman books. The one I like is called What Makes Love Last. Like, you're both going to read it together.
right.
Go, and this is going to be your blueprint to how to communicate, because this is what works. You don't have to debate it. It is what works. It's science. And so you're going to ferret out a lot of weird. A friend of mine has a term, WIPs, WIPS, weird interpersonal shit. You're going to ferret out the WIPs if you
Ooh, I
just
like
communicate for
it.
real with someone. You also should read five love languages when you're young. But and the other thing you do when you're young is you spend money instead of save money. Like, if you just put like $6,000 a year away at 18, 19, 20 through 25 and stop and never do
And
it again, you'll have like $4 million at 65. Do the math. I'm not
chilling.
kidding. The
Yeah.
S&P 500, 10.9% compound.
Let's go.
It's so we spend when we should invest. So we make financial mistakes, we make relationship mistakes, we make leadership mistakes, we make learning mistakes, because we don't know what makes a deep learner and what makes us better and how to improve ourselves. And so we figure this stuff out in our 30s and 40s, usually after life whacks us hard with a sledgehammer in the face and takes it from us, including the house and the kids and the payments. And then we're
Yeah.
like, oh crap, I wish I'd known this when I was 18. Because you can learn it later, but if you learn it earlier in life,
How much better is the
how much
overall?
better are you? And so one of my frustrations is, when I teach, for example, financial programs, I want to teach 16 to 20-year-olds, but they're not the ones watching the classes.
Yeah, they're not the ones with yeah,
They're people like generally 30 to 48 with,
yeah.
they're single and they have debt and they've made a lot of mistakes and they're trying to get out of the
Trying to
hole.
figure
And,
it
and
out.
if you can still listen, and it still matters, because you can always get out of the hole, but you miss like 20 years of compounding, and not just compounding monetarily, but of your skills and your learning and
And
your
your
knowledge and your
understanding,
network, the things, what makes
opportunity.
you successful: knowledge, network,
Yeah,
sometimes credentials. To be a
yeah,
doctor, you have to go to med school or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
They throw you in jail if you're one without. But so there's certain things that just build upon themselves. Your life is exponential. When I talked earlier about exponential trends, money is an exponential trend.
I
Skill
understand.
is an exponential trend.
I understand.
Small improvement every day is an exponential trend. Toyota made the world's largest company in the world for automotive companies by just small incremental 1% improvements, because that's exponential.
Yeah.
We just need to start seeing ourselves as a series of tiny habits. We think about motivation, but that's a myth.
Motivation is an absolute myth.
And so it's tiny habits repeated make us who we are. And so how do you codify? That's what brain science shows us. So how do you create a series of small, tiny, incremental improvements to be better at every little thing? And the accumulation of those thousands of improvements over a lifetime are extraordinary. And I didn't do that. I made every mistake you can make. Made
Right.
the money, had it all spent, lost it, built back. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
was with the wrong people. Bipolarism sucks. I wish I wish I'd seen the signs, and, well, they were there. I just
I
ignored
just
them.
didn't understand what it meant.
And
I just thought it meant you need to go to the doctor.
yeah, so we make mistakes, and I wish I could just get people early.
Get
And
to
so,
them so those mistakes are less likely.
but anyway, we're here now, and wherever someone is, they can still be helped, and they still have something to contribute, and the world's still worth making more beautiful for everybody.
Absolutely, man.
And
Absolutely.
it sucks because men. I think we're seen as not part of that discussion.
No,
Like,
for
just
sure.
ogres who are violent and are uncouth, have no social skills, like barely able to function in society. And I don't know where that garbage came from, because we do extraordinary things to create and change the world for the better. And we have capacity to transform our families and future generations and each other.
Yeah.
And that's robbed from us in the current discourse. And so it's no wonder that people turn toward these kind of very right-wing hateful things as a way,
Yeah.
because I get the rage. I really do. I didn't get it. I mean, I was beaten more or less every day growing up, but I didn't really understand rage until my first marriage. And I'm like, okay, now I get it. I get it. And didn't, I didn't lash out, but I got it. And a lot of men feel that. And we feel just like we're here to beat the punching bags. And that doesn't excuse violence, by the way, because women literally
No.
are punching bags. And so like no man ever hits another woman or other men really, unless it's like in the mats or something. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you
No,
know,
true.
but we need to listen to each other, support each other, speak up when we see others doing harm, but support each other when we see each other being harmed as well. And the aphorism "no good deed goes unpunished" needs to become like something which isn't true anymore.
Yeah, we need to turn it
And
into
and
possible.
so I really want us to up our game and to take each other more seriously. And we don't have to be alone and desperate and feel like the shame we carry or the desperation. I think it was Thoreau, the transcendentalist writer,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
most men live a life of, try that again. Most men live a life of quiet desperation.
It's true.
I think it's still true, like almost 200 years later.
Yeah, no, it's very real, man. And yeah, I've been working really hard to stay consistent with this podcast, and one of the main reasons is because every time I make a post, I get at least one follower, and every 3 to 5, I get a paid subscriber. And all I got to do is keep posting, and every time I post, there's someone who hits me inevitably, and they go, "Hey, what's up?" And these are people that I know, right? And they're like, "Man, that last thing you did on sadness, that was me like last year." What? You have no idea how much pain men are in. Have no idea how sad they are, but they're at work, they're at the game,
Which nobody cares. Just shut up and deal with it.
dude, it's so
Go
deep.
make more money because that's what you're valued
And
for.
so
So
I just keep doing episodes, all these years that I've done Bishop Chronicles, I would do it, do it, do it. And if I wouldn't hit a goal or if I was nowhere near that goal, I would get down on myself and I would stop. And this is not stopping because I'm seeing the results like every week. I'm seeing the results. And, this thing about money is such a big deal for so many. And I think in these times, like I said, every time, every other day when I wake up, I see a new Silicon Valley company getting rid of people. I see changes inside the government that look like wild and unstable. And I have a hard time believing, and I'm not like a big fear monger type person, like by any means, but I have a feeling by the time we get to like the beginning of 26, man, it's going to be really rough, like financially for a lot of people. And so that's why I'm trying to do this episode with you now, so that when hopefully I'm wrong, first of all, I hope I'm wrong. But if I'm right, my hope is that people who are shook will find this episode, will hear what you're saying, will go to demystifying Silicon Valley, will go to demystifying wealth, and start working on their future.
yeah, and by the way, the numbers are worse than you think because the government statistics are not. If you look at numbers in the field on inflation, layoffs, it's bad. It's really
Yeah,
bad. So recession's here, and there was no structural reason other than just the White House. So we'll leave
right.
it there. So, but it's real and it's going to affect people. And I always say there's never a sign that says no job available if you're an entrepreneur. And you
Mm,
don't have to be a big technology entrepreneur. You can just build something that solves a small problem in your community, in your environment, that's repeatable, that's better than someone else's, that starts with all the things I teach. It's human centered, meaning you listen to customers. You love the problem, not your solution.
yeah,
Because most people build things that nobody wants. And
it's
so
true.
how do you listen to people and say you build something that they viscerally need to have and can't do without? Until you have that, you don't have anything. And you keep
Yeah,
repeating new we call minimum viable products. So you keep
right.
new experiments until you get it right. Listen, deeply listen. By the way, listening is also the key to being an entrepreneur, to business, because you have to solve customer problems. If you don't do that, you're making a mistake. You test. What's the data? How do we know? Let's do it as cheaply as possible, as many times until we nail it. Let's not put real money behind it until
So we know the script.
yeah, we scale it when we nail it.
No,
And
that's
and we growth hack. We don't rely on traditional marketing. We like make scientific, testable, verifiable hacks to get growth and to do things like that. And the data's never been easier. So all these tools anyone can use. Anyone can use. and a
I love it,
precocious
man.
14-year-old can understand the things I teach. And from a money perspective, I guess I didn't, there's one answer I wish I'd given a minute, a little while ago. And he said, what do you do to get out? The first thing is admit that you're bad at money and it's not your fault. We are prey to multiple trillion-dollar industries like credit card companies and gambling companies and others that know how to light up our brains with addiction. I mean, I live in
Yeah,
Las Vegas. The entire city is built on intermittent reward.
this
Like,
is true.
I mean, I don't pay state taxes here because the tourists pay my taxes for me. Like, it's all funded by gambling losses.
It's
That's
true.
why there's no taxes in the state. So those industries know how to manipulate us, and we are helpless to defend ourselves. We also evolutionarily aren't built for this, which I alluded to. We want to spend money now. We want to look good to other people. By the way,
Yeah.
why do you care that someone else is driving an expensive sports car? That's a depreciating asset. That's dumb. Drive your car 300,000 miles until it falls off and then get another one. Maybe it's slightly used. Because I mean, depreciating assets, which include girlfriends sometimes. I mean, depreciating assets are things that go down in value and just suck your money out. And so
Yeah.
you have to think about appreciating assets, things that help you in life, that help you improve, that invest. And so there's a million reasons we're bad. Money scripts, money meant love, money meant, it means things to us growing up. There's
Mhm.
all sorts of reasons why we suck at money. And literally, so the funny thing is, the first class I teach in my wealth series is why are we bad at money?
Mm-hmm.
And this is an interesting story, maybe for here. So it's the second time I taped the class. The first time it was called The Psychology of Money, and men hated it. Women loved it, men hated it because psychology is for weak people.
Yeah. So then you had to
So I
go.
retaped the whole class and just didn't use the word psychology, but it's the same material, and now men love it. It's crazy. It's just changed that one word.
That's deep. Oh my.
But it's all the same material, but it's all the things like, and the thing is, I don't want people to feel alone or ashamed because we've all been desperate before. And and the first step is just realizing you're bad at this because you never were taught. Your evolution conspires against you, and the world is manipulating you. So you have to know those things. In the second class, which men tend to like better than the first, to be honest, women it's the other way. And it's interesting having data like this, but
Yeah.
men, the second class is the power of exponential thinking. And literally, no one believes the numbers when I say like this is worth like, $50,000. They're like, you're
All
lying.
right.
But when I get like, I went to the bank and took out like $70,000, and they think you're a drug dealer, by the way.
All right. When you do that, of course.
But it's Vegas, so they're like, all right,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll report you to Treasury, but you're allowed to. It's your money. I said, look, if I want to take a bath in my bathtub with $100 bills, what are you gonna do? It's my money.
You know what I mean?
I get to do that. So, but I would show them like literally, and you can see it on the videotapes, like this is worth, one,
Right.
10,000, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. Like just put stacks of hundreds. Now it's like, oh my gosh, it's visceral. I can see it.
You can see it.
And you can do the math. Like you can take your, phone and do
Yeah,
like,
and do whatever.
one times
But to
1.1. So
see,
10%
yeah, yeah, yeah.
equals, but no one believes that because your brain, we're not wired to think exponentially. We're wired to think linearly. I can show you something grows like this, but you will never believe me. Your brain will still see a small pattern. So we miss the big picture. Anyway, so those are the first two classes. So and those are free. And
Yeah.
by the way, the way that all my sites work is if you can't afford it, there's coupon codes that get you in for nothing. You just have to write me and say, I'm under 200% the poverty level or whatever. And no one's ever turned away. And the money that I get goes to help, scholarships like the kids we talked
Yeah.
about. So it doesn't go to the house of David. It goes to, my causes.
Right, right.
Um, because I want a sustainable model. I'm going to need trauma staff and other things to do this at scale. But in any event, those are the first two. They're free. Demystifying wealth. Why are we bad at money? And the exponential power of money. Like if you just learn those two things and nothing else, you can set yourself up. I mean, the other classes go into how do you set up the plumbing, like the systems. So money flows into your bank account, it goes into your investments first, and then you spend what's left over. You invest in yourself first, then you spend, not the other way.
Right, 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 right.
Then invest what's left over, you'll never have anything. And so,
Man, I really hope people go watch those videos. Those videos are incredible.
and then on the entrepreneurship stuff, like if all you did is watch on demystifying Silicon Valley, the video on the opening page,
Yeah.
it's like a 2-hour program for some MBA students. So it's a little on the advanced side, but fundamentally solid. Um, and I haven't taped the mass market entrepreneurship classes. It's on my agenda for the next few months.
Right, right, right.
I get some free time. Like there's a lot you can learn from that. Like, and I'll give the punchline away to the classes right here. You may have remembered in seventh grade, if you paid attention during science, you had a hypothesis,
Right.
tested it, you gathered data, it failed or it worked in part, you went back
Mm.
and did it again and again. Like Edison tried 1,000
Yeah,
different filaments for the light bulb till he found the one that worked. That's entrepreneurship. It's not this mythology that I was in the shower and the lightning struck my head and I saw
yeah, yeah.
brilliance and only a genius like me can do this. Like, oh, that's not what happens. You're generally wrong. What you do is you listen to customers, you
Yeah,
build to
yeah.
exactly what they tell you again and again and again. I mean, deeply listen, because sometimes people ask for things they don't know.
They're not sure.
And
Yeah,
I'll come back to that in a minute, but you get data, you build, measure, learn, build, measure, learn. Like for example, the Obama White House once wanted to build an app for financial aid and education. So they went to kids in the Washington Mall and they had like a piece of paper that was the size of a phone and they drew what an app would look like. Okay, if you press this button, what do you want to happen? Would you press this? What are you going to do? Okay, here's another piece of paper. Now what's happens here? Because it used to cost like $100,000 to build an app. It's kind of cheaper now, but still not
yeah, yeah,
free.
yeah, yeah.
So before they built a single line of code, they tested and tested and tested and got it
So
right.
they knew what they
You know,
needed to look and
like
feel like.
Dropbox, before they've even built any piece of software, the guy created a video saying, "Hey, I can drop my files here and they're on this other computer. Would you like this?" And like thousands of people signed up with credit card information, names, and emails. By the way,
Dang.
Kickstarter is a form of minimum viable product because they're saying
Right, that's true.
we'll build it when there's enough people. It's not like, for this won't make sense to our British friends, but there's this American baseball movie called Field of Dreams. If we
Right.
build it, they will come.
It's
No,
true.
that's not the right way to think about this. You make sure you smart build. I build it when they've come, when they're lining up, when they can't wait, when they're
I thought if
demanding.
they built it, they would come. No.
And instead we achieve failure because we build something nobody wants. And we
Yeah,
waste
I
time
saw
and
that
money.
happen a lot in the Valley, man. I saw that happen a lot. We're like, yeah, we're gonna make red cups for everybody, and they're like, research shows blue cups do twice as good. And you're
Well, you
like,
could have tested that
so
for
dude,
nothing.
you did a red cup campaign. You didn't even look into that. Like, I saw that 100 times,
Yeah,
bro.
but in the best VCs, we don't fall for that. That's why we're the best VCs. We don't get excited by passion. I mean, that's what people do. We look for passion. No, you don't. If the World Cup is on the line, you don't put the most passionate fan from the stands with a shirt hanging out in the penalty kick line. You put Lionel Messi.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well, Messi's not a good example because he shanked in the Copa America final once. But I mean, but you put
yeah.
the best player on the team, right? You put the person
Right.
who can make the most penalty kicks. And passion does matter because it gets you through the hard times. But skill and knowledge, humility, beginner's mind, the ability to say, I don't know anything and I just want to learn. And I'm humble enough to say I'm wrong because data says I'm wrong. Like my
Yeah.
favorite, like we have a $2.2 billion company we invested in Mexico. And if I call the CEO with an idea, he'll say, what's the experiment you want me to run? And he'll run a 30-day experiment just to find out. And sometimes I'm right and sometimes I'm wrong. But that's the way he treats every idea, no matter where it comes from.
That's
Let's
perfect.
get data. And it's scientific method. We don't leave things to chance. And you don't have to in your business either. So test it, iterate it. There's the one book I'm doing show and tell. I just happen to have
Oh
this
yeah.
pile here for another reason. Lean
Yeah.
startup. I mean, people spend
Oh yeah,
200
lean startup. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
People spend $200,000 to $300,000 in MBAs for $20. You can get better. Like I literally talk to people all the time from the Stanford Graduate School of Business, Yale School of Management. In fact, I had one conversation with someone recently from Yale who
Yeah.
read Lean Startup and his business was violating every single principle. And all the money he put into it could have been saved had he just run 2 or 3 experiments.
Damn.
It's just testing experiments. They don't teach this stuff because business school professors, by the way, have never been in business typically. The
Yeah.
average drug dealer knows more about business than the entire Harvard Business School faculty.
Damn. Hip hop. Let's go.
So like the theory, well, in theory, this is how it should be. It's like if you've never built a real business and repeatedly done it, you don't know anything.
That's hella real.
You don't know anything. So talk to the people who've actually really done this. And I'm telling
Yeah.
you that if all you do for business was read Lean Startup, you got most of what you need to know. There's tons of other stuff. So you should like watch all my
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
put
yeah.
the plug in. But if you just do that, go buy his book. I don't care if Eric gets the money. He's a nice guy. So
That's
you've got to financially make yourself stable because if you don't have that foundation, you can't do anything else. If
that's
you're
real.
on quicksand financially, you can't make good decisions on anything else. You're just tunneling and you're making bad decisions because you're trying to survive. And what you do to survive is maladaptive once you're out. And
Man,
that's one of the
I really love
biggest,
what you just
yeah,
said right there. That's
that's one of
super
the
real, man. That's super
biggest
real.
mistakes I made. You know,
So, dude, give them the website addresses and let's have you back on like next week to talk about a more deeper. specific aspect to some of this stuff
Yeah,
because
and I'm sorry I was being superficial. Like I'm a very detailed guy.
no, this is great. There's nothing superficial about it. What I'm saying is this is the conversation that we need to have so that people understand the conversations to come.
So there are two sites. If you're interested in entrepreneurship specifically, it's Demystifying Silicon Valley. Just Google it and it'll come up. The sister site to that is called Demystifying Wealth. And so far, all I have up for videos are the financial part. So that's the first of the three legs. The other two, I have done programs. I just haven't videotaped them yet. So I have them. I just haven't taped them yet.
Yeah, you're just not up. They're not up.
I keep I'm still testing some stuff. So I iterate a bunch of times before I commit it to videotapes. I want it to be right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then there's a third site called Unleashing Impact, which is about how you take these same tools to create impact in the world.
Okay.
And that doesn't mean you're making no money because I
Right,
actually
right, right. But it does mean that
market-based
it's happening.
solution. Yeah, but if you care about things like access to education, lessening poverty and suffering, giving people opportunities, decreasing violence, like that's the site. And that's the newest project. And I have a number of I have a program coming up at a battered women's shelter in Vegas soon with the entire management team, the donors, and some sister organizations coming in. I have another one coming up. I don't want to name who they are, but another major nonprofit in the city,
Yeah,
like probably the leading nonprofit in Vegas, where they're going to have their staff and donors come. We haven't confirmed a date, so I don't want to put a name here if
yeah,
it's
yeah, no, it's fine.
not going to come out. But where I'm doing these trainings to show how do you create exponential change, which is sustainable, not environmentally sustainable, but economically sustainable. So you don't need to go beg for money anymore, or at least you don't have to as much. Because
Right.
here's a fun fact: whatever just happened to USAID internationally,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
about to happen to domestic programs.
That's what we.
So if you're relying on the government or private donations, you might want to rethink your business model, or you're going to be doing layoffs yourself soon.
That's real, dude.
And when you have your own market-based solution, you don't need anyone's permission to do whatever you want.
I love it. I love it.
So
Well, we'll get you back on next week. Um, guys, please go to those websites. Go to Demystifying Silicon Valley. Go to Demystifying Wealth. It's beautiful stuff, and there's a reason why people ask him to come out all over the world, and that's why I'm bringing him to you in this moment. But you've got to take the action. You got to be consistent because that's all any of us got. So thank you for tuning in to Bishop Chronicles. Thank you for hanging out. Please share this with your friends because I know you know a couple men going through it, and I promise you, if you send it to one of the men that you think isn't, they are. And so pass this on. Let's keep having these conversations, and next week we'll be digging a little bit deeper. All right. Um, Thank you for watching. Holla at a scholar. You know how we do. Catch me on Instagram at Bishop Chronicles. Peace.